So today we shall have a discussion on theory of consumer behavior, microeconomics, class 11. The lesson starts with the consumer. Who is a consumer? Teachers, who is a consumer?
Who's going to pay and consume
The one who buy goods and services
services.
and derive satisfaction from those goods and the services.
Yes.
The one who buy goods and services and derive satisfaction from those goods and services we call a consumer. Just another question, not related to the topic. What is the difference between a consumer and a customer? Anybody?
So the customer maybe is a person who purchases a product. So there may be two persons, sir. One may be a customer and one may be a consumer. The person who consumes the product, he known as consumer.
Okay. So he buy a good, but he may not
Consume.
use it. A
Yes,
customer is a person who buy the goods. He may or may not use it. Whereas a consumer is a person who uses that particular product, who derives satisfaction by consuming that product. That is the basic difference between a consumer and a... Just a minute, teachers. So that is the basic difference between a consumer and a customer. Customer may or may not be using that product. He buy it. For example, a father purchases a bag, a school bag for his son. Father is a customer. Whereas the consumer is actually that boy who is making use of that particular bag. Or you buy a cake for your daughter or for your son. You are a customer. You are buying it. But your daughter is using it or your son is using it. So that is the difference actually. Now, what do you mean by equilibrium? In the last class also, we have discussed this term. What is equilibrium?
State of rest, sir.
State of rest, or a position from where no further change is required. So these are all certain known things to your children. You can start asking such questions. Find out a few questions from this connected to this chapter, which are already known to the children. From there, you can start the lesson because there is no, sorry. So ask a few questions which are connected to this chapter, like who is a consumer, who is a customer, what is equilibrium, when will a consumer be in equilibrium? Can you tell me when will a consumer be in equilibrium? What is the aim of a consumer?
A maximum satisfaction.
Maximizing profit.
Yeah, maximizing
Satisfaction.
Yes. Consumers' aim is to get maximum satisfaction with limited expenditure. So such questions can be asked. Then you can start the lesson. A consumer is a person who buys goods and services for the satisfaction of his wants, and his objective is to get maximum satisfaction with limited expenditure. That is the main aim of a consumer. What do you mean by utility? Next term is actually utility.
Want satisfying power of a commodity.
Want satisfying power of a commodity. Yes. Suppose we are hungry, we eat apple. So our want gets reduced or it gets satisfied. So we can say that that apple has got utility. Or I want to go to Chennai. I bought a train and travel. So I'm actually, my want to get satisfied. So the train service has got utility. Now another related question is, what is the difference between utility and usefulness? Can anyone say? What is the difference between utility and usefulness?
Utility means if we are asking question about how was the mutton, to non-vegetarian means they won't use. So it is not utility. Who is using the commodity? So that is usefulness.
I don't agree with you, ma'am. I'm sorry. Anybody else? What is the difference between utility and usefulness? It's a related question, no? Utility means want to satisfy power. every product has got utility. Then what is the difference between these two terms, usefulness and utility?
For example, during summer season, the sweaters do not have usefulness, but they have utility during the other season. The commodity has its
Other
utility.
seasons, they have usefulness also, no, ma'am. When utility is there, they have usefulness also. Okay, let me come to it. See, utility means the want is just satisfied. Say, for example, liquor. Liquor has utility. A drunkard, he wants to consume liquor, so he consumes it. His want is satisfied. Does it have usefulness? It doesn't
No.
have usefulness because it is harmful for his body. So it will become usefulness only if it is having some positive effect on the user. But utility can be positive or negative. For example, a smoker gets a cigarette, he smokes the cigarette, his want is satisfied, so it has got utility, but it doesn't have usefulness. Whereas food items, if you take, they have both utility and usefulness because they have a positive effect. I hope that difference is clear.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So please put such questions to your children. Sometimes your children themselves will be able to come with the right answer. Otherwise, you can give the right answer. Okay. So utility is always, it can be either positive effect or negative effect. Just one is satisfied. Say, man wants to smoke. So cigarette has utility, but cigarette doesn't have usefulness because cigarette is not good for his body. It is harmful to his body. Similarly, liquor has got utility. It is satisfying the want of the drunkard, but it does not have usefulness because it is in no way helping him. It is actually having negative impact on his health. But food items, if you take, it has got both utility and the usefulness. You are consuming an apple, your want is satisfied, apple is good for your body. Or you can take another one, a diabetic patient is eating laddus. A diabetic patient is eating more laddus. His want is satisfied. His want is satisfied but it is having negative impact on his body, so it doesn't have a usefulness. So utility concept can be introduced to create interest among them. Such related questions like what is the difference between utility and usefulness? Such questions can be put to them. Okay. So want satisfying power of a commodity is called a utility. See, this picture explains utility actually. I am hungry. I want food. This apple can satisfy my want. So apple has the power to satisfy a want. So apple has utility. Now, the total utility, marginal utility concepts and all. What is total utility?
Sum of all the commodities consumed.
Yeah, the utility derived by consuming all the units of a commodity. Suppose 5 apples are there. From the first apple, you get 10 utils, second one 8, third one 6, next one 3, next one 2. All if you add up, you will get a total utility. So it is the sum total of the utilities derived by consuming all the units of a commodity. That is what we call by the name total utility. Then what is marginal utility?
Addition made to the totality by consuming one more additional unit of a commodity.
Excellent. For example, you consumed 4 units, you got 30 utils. By consuming the 5th unit, you are getting 35, means that 5 will be the marginal utility. So here total utility is sigma marginal utility, sum total of the marginal utility, and marginal utility is the addition to total utility when one more unit of a commodity is consumed. Formula we know, delta TU divided by delta Q. Okay. Now, know as we consume more of a commodity, the marginal utility falling, and finally it will become negative. Just let us have a look at this curve alone, this diagram alone. Can you explain this diagram? Just diagram alone. Can you explain? Anybody?
Total utility initially increases, reaches its maximum, and then it falls.
Increases. How does it increase, ma'am? Any speciality for that increase?
When we are
It increases at a diminishing rate.
Diminishing rate.
Yeah, that has to be mentioned. Okay. Total
Okay,
utility increases at a diminishing rate.
Okay,
This pink colored curve is actually total utility curve. We know it is increasing at a diminishing rate till a certain point. I mean, till marginal utility becomes zero. Marginal utility right from the beginning keep on falling. Then it becomes zero. It can even become negative. Can marginal utility become negative?
Yes, sir.
Can marginal utility become negative? Yes. When does it become negative actually?
when total utility falls.
False.
Yeah, when total utility falls or after the point of satiety.
Sir.
Point of satiety means, you know, the one who consumes says, yes, enough, I don't want. In other words, if he consumes, instead of satisfaction, he will be getting dissatisfaction. That dissatisfaction is what we call negative utility. For example, I used to give an example to students in this regard. Many years back, some 24 years back, I was working in a residential school. So there actually the biggest punishment to the students was actually, you know, mainly, for example, suppose they go for some fighting, and if a boy got of somebody, the greatest punishment, it's a punishment. We should do it in the modern world. But some 5 years back, I used to do. The warden, it was a residential school, the warden will bring that boy to the dining hall and he will keep on giving him food. So as much as the warden gives, the boy has to eat.
Good morning, sir.
So after a certain limit, you know, the boy will have a lot of dissatisfaction. He will start eating. So there it is negative utility. To the extent we can eat. After if you eat, you will be having dissatisfaction. That dissatisfaction is called a negative utility. So marginal utility can become negative, and marginal utility is negative, total utility starts falling. This is actually the law of diminishing marginal utility. As we consume more and more units of a commodity, marginal utility keep on falling. Total utility initially increases at diminishing rate until marginal utility is zero, and after marginal utility is zero, total utility also starts falling. This theory is called the law of diminishing marginal utility. Can you tell me what are the assumptions of this law?
It should be continuous. The consumption of the unit should be continuous.
Yes, the consumption should be continuous. Suppose morning you eat an apple, and even you eat the second apple, you can't say that the satisfaction derived from the second apple is lower than the first one. You can't say. Consumption should be continuous. Then, this is function.
Taste, color, quantity, everything is same unit.
Yeah, all the units should be of same quality. Say, for example, first you are giving a local apple, and next you are giving Kashmiri apple. The Kashmiri apple may sometimes give better satisfaction than the local apple. So what we say is the quality should be the same. There should not be any difference in quality. Then,
So there should no change in price, sir.
price and the satisfaction, I don't think.
A consumer should be rational. That is, he should try to maximize his utility.
Be rational. That's okay. Consumer behavior, we can say this. Consumer should be rational. Anything else?
The marginal utility of money is constant.
Okay, marginal utility of money is constant, that we know. Okay, then that is why, you know, money, even if you get more and more money, we don't say no, correct? No, even a crorepati, even if you ask Adani or some other people whether they require money, they will say yes, we require money. So money is marginal utility, does not. Okay, then see, next one you can say consumption should be in sizable quantity. Correct, no?
Yes, sir. Same quantity. If you are taking bottle means same bottle. Cup of coffee means all the
Not
commodities
only
should be
that,
cup
ma'am,
of
it's
coffee.
not like that. Actually, the consumption should be in sizable quantity means, say, for example, you ask a small child, suppose a small child is having a chocolate with the child, you ask the child to give chocolate. Now, of due to you. So that will not help us, or in that case, this law will not work. Another example, you are very thirsty, you are given a drop of juice. Can you say that the second drop will have lower utility than the first one? Surely no. So you have to consume in some bigger size, in some sizable quantity. If it is water, at least one glass of water. If it is chocolate, one full chocolate. So very small quantity, if you are consuming, the law will not work. Anything else? So we have seen the consumer has to be rational, consumption has to be continuous, all the units should be of same quality, consumption should be in sizable quantity. Any other? Okay. Okay, these are all the assumptions. So please touch on the assumptions, explain the law clearly to the student. Ramu sir. Ramu sir. Now, here we start the equilibrium. We have already discussed the what is equilibrium. It's a state of rest or a position from where no further change is needed. And we also know that a consumer is in equilibrium when he consumes that quantity which gives him maximum satisfaction. Suppose 3 units of apple is giving maximum satisfaction. We can say by consuming 3 units, the consumer is in equilibrium. Okay. Now, consumer's equilibrium. See here in this case, you see, I am satisfied. He neither wants to increase nor decrease the consumption of sandwich. He is at equilibrium. So this gentleman is at equilibrium because he neither wants to increase the number of sandwiches nor he wants to reduce the number of sandwiches. He is at the equilibrium. Maximum satisfaction when a consumer is deriving. He is in a state of rest. He neither wants to increase consumption nor wants to reduce consumption. We say consumer is in equilibrium. What are the 2 approaches in analyzing consumer's equilibrium?
Indifference curve approach, Marshallian utility approach.
Okay. Any other name for these 2?
Cardinal and ordinal.
Cardinal and ordinal.
Cardinal utility analysis and the ordinal utility analysis. What is the basic difference between cardinal utility analysis and ordinal?
Cardinal, the utility can be measured. Ordinal, the utility cannot be measured, but it should be ranked.
Very good, very good. So those who supported cardinal utility analysis, they say that utility can be measured. And they have also introduced a unit for measuring utility called utils. Whereas the supporters of ordinal utility analysis, they say that utility is just a psychological experience. Satisfaction is a psychological experience. It cannot be measured. It cannot be measured. It cannot be expressed in terms of numbers, but it can be ranked, as ma'am rightly said, it can be ranked. We can say this particular girl's dance is better than the dance of the other girl. But we can't say this girl danced for 5 units, that girl danced for 6 units, something like that we cannot say. So it can be ranked. So Alfred Marshall is the person who put forward this cardinal utility analysis mainly. Whereas ordinal utility analysis was propounded by Hicks and Allen, 2 main economics actually, Hicks and Allen. Both will be discussing here. So let us now come to cardinal utility analysis. Here they explain utility in two different ways. One commodity case and two commodity case. Can anyone of you explain that one commodity case? Consumer's equilibrium under one commodity case as per cardinal utility analysis.
A marginal utility of the commodity should be equal to the price of the commodity.
Yes. So that is one condition. Second condition, ma'am. Two conditions are there.
Marginal utility of the commodity by price of the commodity should be equal to marginal utility of money.
Okay. Second condition, one more condition is there, ma'am. Very simple one. Okay. The first condition, let us see. The first condition is MUX is equal to PX, we know. MUX means marginal utility of commodity X. It should be equal to price of X. So this is the first condition in consumer's equilibrium. Marginal utility should be equal to its price. So what will happen if they are not equal? Say MUX is greater than PX. What will happen?
The person will consume more, sir.
Yeah, if MUX is greater than PX, the consumer will increase consumption.
Consumption will increase.
Yes, because he is getting more than what he paid. He is getting more than, say, I paid 100 rupee, but I got much more satisfaction than it. So I will increase the consumption. So when I increase the consumption, what will happen? When I increase the consumption, MUX will fall. Am I right?
Yes.
And it will
Yes,
become
sir.
equal to price of X, then consumer will be in equilibrium. Just opposite, if MUX is less than PX, what will happen?
Will reduce the consumption
He will reduce the consumption. And what will happen when
And
he
reach the
reduces
limit.
consumption?
and reach the equilibrium point. sir. It
MUX
means
will
the
increase
X
and it will
equal-
become equal to price of X. So
Price
this
of
is the
X.
first condition actually. Here we have the diagram. MUX is actually the marginal utility curve and PX is actually the price curve. We assume that the price remains constant and at a point D, they both are equal. So consumer this much, you know, maybe OM quantity, the OM quantity, the consumer will be consuming. This is the point of equilibrium. MUX is equal to PX. Now, what is the second condition? Second condition is very simple. Marginal utility must be falling as we consume more and more units of a commodity as per the law of diminishing marginal utility. So law of diminishing marginal utility should be in operation. Okay, so marginal utility keep on falling as consumption increases. It is due to the operation of the law of diminishing marginal utility. These two conditions children have to explain for single commodity case. And they should also explain what will happen if MUX is greater than PX and also if MUX is less than PX. So this is actually one commodity case. Now two commodity case. Two commodity case is explained with the help of a law. What is that law called? Which law explains two commodity case?
Hicks.
Law of equimarginal utility.
Yeah, law of equimarginal utility. Law of equimarginal utility. So such information, please share with the children. What does the, or when is the consumer in equilibrium in two commodity case? When is the consumer in equilibrium under two commodity case?
When the marginal utility of X is equal to the marginal utility of Y.
Is it so? You missed out something, ma'am?
Or the price ratio, MUX.
Yeah, yes. The
MUX.
ratio between marginal utility of commodity X and its price is equal to the ratio between marginal utility of commodity Y to its price. So MUX by PX is equal to MUY by PY. So this is actually the first condition. Marginal utility of commodity X divided by price of X is equal to marginal utility of commodity Y divided by price of Y. The ratio between marginal utility of one commodity to its price is equal to the ratio between marginal commodity of the other commodity, marginal utility of the other commodity to its price. So this is the second condition. Okay, and this law of equimarginal utility was put forward by H.H. Gosen. It is also called Gosen's second law of consumption. Now, so this is actually the equilibrium point. MUX by PX is equal to MUY by PY. If they are not equal, what will happen? Suppose MUX by PX is greater than MUY by PY. What will happen?
The consumer will increase the consumption of Y.
MUX by PX is greater than MUY by PY. MUX by PX is greater than MUY by PY. What will happen? Which one will increase?
The consumer getting more marginal utility.
Yeah, which commodity he will increase the consumption? MUX by, yeah, he will
More
increase the
X,
consumption
less
of
Y.
X.
More X, less Y.
Yes, he will increase the consumption of X and he will reduce the consumption of Y. As a result of that, MUX by PX will fall and MUY by PY will rise. This will go on until both become equal. I hope it is clear. See, MUX by PX is greater than MUY by PY. So he is actually getting more satisfaction from the first commodity. So he will increase the consumption. When he increases consumption, the marginal utility will fall in the case of X. So MUX by PX will fall. Whereas he is reducing the consumption of Y. So marginal utility of Y will rise. So MUY by PY will increase. And this will go on until both will become equal. Just opposite will happen if MUX by PX is less than MUY by PY. He will increase the consumption of Y in that case, and he will reduce the consumption of X. When he increases the consumption of Y, its marginal utility will fall. And when he reduces the consumption of X, its marginal utility will rise. And this will go on until both become equal. So that is first condition. The second condition is same thing, marginal utility falls as consumption increases. This is due to, see, only if it is a 4-mark question, many students make a mistake. They will not write this second point. 1 mark they will be losing as per board pattern. If it is a 4-mark question, 3 marks they will give for the first condition. But 1 mark is allotted for the second condition. Second condition is very simple. The law of diminishing marginal utility is in operation, and as the consumer consumes more and more units of a commodity, the utility keep on falling. So that also should be written. I hope some problems can be children work it out whether the consumer is in equilibrium. Clear cardinal utility analysis? Any doubt in that? Or you want to add on something to it? If you want to add on something to it, you can tell.
Yes.
Okay. Now come to indifference curve. How will you introduce indifference curve? Any idea, teachers? How will you introduce this topic?
We can give the example with some known products. For example, Pepsi, Coke. So these are some beverages which students are familiar. So we can give these 2 products as an example. So what difference you are getting in these 2 products? So by drinking Pepsi also it seems like same, and Coke also seems like, so I have no difference. Like that, some students will reply. So by consuming this product and that product, if you are not having any difference like that. So in market, we have some combinations of products. So this, if you are buying one combination, So if you're comparing with some other combination, you will not find any difference, even though there is changes in this baskets or changes in the products.
Okay, okay.
So
Anybody
like
else?
that we can.
Yeah, good. Anybody else? Any other way in which the topic can be introduced? See, first we have to make them understand what does indifference mean. What is the meaning of indifference?
Unable to choose both are
Not
same.
Indifference.
No,
See, some students we say are indifferent to the class. What does it mean? Some students are indifferent to class.
whatever goes in the class, they do not respond properly.
Yeah, they are not interested or they are not bothered about it. So indifference actually means, see, you have made already a choice and you are not interested in the other combinations. See, you selected a bundle of two commodities. Okay, a combination you have already chosen. You are not interested in the others. So that is what actually indifference means. Any other way to introduce the topic?
Yes, sir. Sir, excuse me, sir.
Ah.
If children, means one child wants to buy a pen or pencil, because the parent has given only a 10 rupees, the pen may be a 5 rupees, or pencil may be a 3 rupees. They can choose which is a best one. Some part of money they can spend on a particularly pen or pencil like. So they given a two option. So whatever the availability of resources they can spend on it. So such a way also we can use.
So once he chooses one, he is not interested in the other.
Yes,
He is indifferent to the other combinations. Okay.
Yes.
So what is an indifference curve actually? What is an indifference curve? It's a diagram we know. And
Yes.
what does this diagram show? Different combinations of two goods that will give equal satisfaction to the consumer. Here you can give an example. To start it, you can give an example. See, you take apple and orange. You write different combinations. Say 1 apple, 10 oranges. This can be one combination. 1 apple, 10 oranges. Another one, 2 apple, 7 oranges. 3 apple, 4 oranges. 4 apple, 1 orange. So you are giving different combinations. So the child can select any of these combinations. So whatever combination you select, you get the same satisfaction. Say for example, 1 orange, 10 apples, you are getting say 100 pills. 2 apple, 7 oranges, same 100 utils. 3 apple, 4 oranges, same 100 utils. Then 5 apple, 1 orange, you are getting the same. So any one of these combination, you write down these combinations on the board as an example and ask the children to select any one. And you can also say whichever combination you choose, your level of satisfaction will be 100. The same satisfaction. If not 100, the same satisfaction you are getting. So that diagram we call indifference curve. So just to give an example, apple and orange example you can give. And those different combinations we call different consumption bundles. It can be 1 and 10, or it can be 2 and 7, or it can be 3 and 4, or it can be 4 and 1. So different combination, and each combination will be giving the same satisfaction. When you are presenting it in the form of a diagram, you get indifference curve. So indifference curve is a diagram, and this diagram shows different combinations of two goods which will give equal satisfaction to the consumer. It shows the preference of the consumer. Consumer will choose one combination. If he chooses one combination, he is not interested in the other combination, or we can say he is indifferent to the other combinations. Here we have different combinations you see on the schedule. A, B, C, D are different combinations. A actually 1 and 12, 1 unit of say apple and 12 units of orange. 2 and 8, 3 and 5, 4 and 3. So different combinations of two goods. Here we have to introduce the concept marginal rate of substitution. What is this MRS or marginal rate of substitution? What is MRS or marginal rate of substitution, teachers?
In order to get one additional unit, how many units need to sacrifice?
He has to sacrifice. Yeah. So it is the rate at which one good is substituted by the other. Say in this case you take, he increased the apple by 1 unit. For that he had it to sacrifice 4 units of orange. Correct now? To increase 1 unit of apple, I mean 1 to 2. The consumer had it to reduce 4 units of orange, 12 to 8. So 4 by 1, that is 4 is actually the marginal rate of substitution. Okay. It is the rate at which one good is substituted by the other. It can be calculated by using the formula delta y by delta x. That is units of good sacrificed divided by more units of the other good consumed. How many units you sacrificed divided by how many units more you consumed for the rest. So that will give us marginal rate of substitution, and this MRS is actually difference curve. And always we know MRS will keep on falling. Students, but next case you increase 1 unit, only 3 units are sacrificed. Look at this schedule. Here you can see to increase 1 unit of X, 4 units of Y had it to be sacrificed. So MRS is 4. Here to increase 1 unit, only 3 units are sacrificed. So MRS is 3. Here to increase 1 unit, only 2 units are sacrificed. So MRS is 2. So we say that if MRS keep on falling, can you tell me why?
Due to the law of diminishing marginal utility.
Yes, due to law of diminishing marginal utility. See, you are increasing the consumption of Y, you know. So marginal utility of Y will keep on increasing because you are reducing Y. You are reducing the consumption of Y. So Y's marginal utility will increase. Whereas you are increasing the consumption of X. So X marginal utility will fall. So as you are going on, you know, you will be willing to sacrifice lesser and lesser of Y for more and more units of X, because Y's utility is increasing and X utility is falling. I think that point is clear. Marginal rate of substitution falls. It is due to the operation of the law of diminishing marginal utility, because we are increasing the consumption of X and we are reducing the consumption of Y. So marginal utility of Y will be rising and marginal utility of X will be falling. So we will not be able to sacrifice the same quantity of Y as we sacrificed the earlier for the additional consumption of X. I think this point is clear.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So because of that reason, you know, as MRS, marginal rate of substitution is falling, indifference curve will be convex to origin. See, the curve's shape is decided by rise or fall or constant nature of the MRS curve. If MRS is constant, how the curve will be? Can you just tell me? If MRS is constant, how indifference curve would be?
Straight line.
It will be a straight line. If MRS is, if MRS is rising, how the curve will be?
Concave.
Concave. But in this case, we know indifference curve will be convex to origin because MRS keep on falling. MRS keep on falling because of the operation of the
Voice
law of
breaking, sir.
diminishing
Sir,
marginal
Voice
utility.
is breaking.
Pardon?
So some
Pardon?
disturbance in the voice. Now it's okay.
The disturbance has come from another person, ma'am. Somebody unmuted. Now is it all right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So here we find the indifference curve actually. We know that it is convex to origin. Now, a very important question which is repeatedly asked is what are the main salient features or characteristic features of indifference curve? Can anyone of you explain the main features or salient features of indifference curve? First one we have,
Indifference curves are convex to the origin.
yeah, that is first one.
Indifference curve cannot
convex to
intersect
origin.
each other.
Two indifference curves.
Higher
do not
indifference
intersect
curve
each
shows
other.
higher level of satisfaction. Lower indifference curve shows lower level of satisfaction.
Then,
Indifference curve slope downwards.
yes. Anything else? Can indifference curve touch x-axis or y-axis?
No, sir.
No. Why?
Hyperbole.
See, it is falling. Can it touch x-axis or y-axis? Can indifference curve touch x-axis or y-axis?
No.
No. Why?
Sir, in the combinations, we have two products, sir.
Hmm.
So if any one product going to become a zero, na, then
Yeah.
it is not
There is no
possible, sir. Due to the in the
It should not
combination.
happen. It should not happen. There should be consumption of both the goods. We cannot have zero of one good and some units of the other good. That is not possible in the case of indifference curve. That is why the curve will not touch either x-axis or y-axis. And already ma'am said two indifference curves cannot intersect each other. Can you tell me why? Why indifference curves cannot touch each other or they cannot intersect each other? See, two indifference curves should not intersect each other. Why?
Sir, before this, we have to say that higher indifference curves gives higher level of satisfaction.
Yes, yes.
With the help of 3 points, we have to say that at
Okay,
the
okay.
point.
My question is, suppose in the exam a question comes, why two indifference curves cannot intersect each other? What should be the answer? Say, two indifference curves should not intersect. We know that. If a question comes, why do we say so? What should be our answer?
Two indifference curve cannot represent the same level of satisfaction.
Sir,
So two indifference curves cannot intersect because each one is giving a different level of satisfaction. Higher one will give higher level of satisfaction, lower one will give lower level of satisfaction. If they are intersecting at the point of intersection, both should be giving equal satisfaction. That cannot happen. Say for example, suppose here we have another indifference curve. See like this, intersecting. So at least at this point, both should be giving equal satisfaction. That cannot happen. Moreover, till this point, the first one is giving higher satisfaction, and after that, the second one is giving higher satisfaction. That also cannot happen because two should be giving different levels of satisfaction, and the higher one will be given higher satisfaction, and the lower one will be giving lower level of satisfaction. So very easily we can say that two different curves cannot give the same, cannot intersect. So these are all the main characteristic features of indifference curve. That is a repeatedly asked question in board exams when microeconomics was a part of class 12 syllabus. Okay. The first one, indifference curve will be convex to origin. It is because MRS XY or MRS marginal rate of substitution keeps on falling. It is due to the law of diminishing marginal utility. Higher indifference curve gives higher level of satisfaction. Lower indifference curve gives lower level of satisfaction. Indifference curve cannot touch either x-axis or y-axis. These are the three main characteristic features. Okay. These are the assumptions actually. See here the properties. It slopes downward from left to right. Why does it slope downward from left to right? Why does the indifference curve slopes downward from left to right?
One commodity is increasing, another commodity is decreasing.
In order to increase the consumption of one commodity, the consumer has to reduce the consumption of the other commodity. Why? Why should he do so? Because resources are limited. He has limited resources and the same resource he is utilizing for the consumption of both the goods. So if he wants to increase the consumption of one, naturally he has to reduce the consumption of the other. Okay. So these are actually, this is indifference map. It's a collection of indifference curve, set of indifference curve placed together in a diagram. IC1, IC2, IC3. Which one will give the highest satisfaction?
IC3.
IC3. Okay. This one is actually the combinations. We call it budget set. So in indifference analysis, indifference curve analysis, after explaining indifference curve, we need to go to the budget set and budget line. What is budget set, teachers? We assume that the consumer consumes only two goods. All his resources are spent on these two goods. What is budget set? What is budget set? Combinations of two goods that a consumer can afford to buy with his given income and prices in the market. Here, see this table, for example, combination A, he spends full income on one good and the zero in the other. This is one combination. Okay, so if he is spending total income on Y, he can buy 10 units of Y. Then he will not be able to buy X at all. Then B combination, he is reducing the consumption of Y and he is increasing the consumption of X by 1 unit, sacrificing 2 units of Y. So different combination which he is able to buy, which he can afford to buy with his given income and prices in the market. When you are presenting it in the form of a schedule, it is called the budget set. And when you present it in the form of a diagram, what would you call it? Budget set, if you are presenting in the form of a diagram, what would you call it?
Budget line.
We will call it
Budget
line. So budget line is nothing but a diagram that shows different combinations of two goods which a consumer can afford to buy, he is able to buy with his given income and prices in the market. This is actually the equation of budget set actually. Px Qx plus Py Qy is less than or equal to the money income of the consumer. Price of X into quantity of X. That means the amount which he spent on X. Am I right? Price into quantity, how much he is going to spend on X, plus price of Y into quantity of Y. That means how much he is planning to spend on Y. When you are adding these two, it should be less than or equal to his income, because we assume that he cannot spend more than his income. So this is budget set equation. Can you tell me what difference will be there for budget line equation? Or will it be the same?
Budget line, it will be only equal to, not less than.
Yeah, it should be equal to, because we assume that he has already spent his full income. So Px Qx plus Py Qy equal to money income will be the equation of budget line. So budget line will be like this. Budget line touches y-axis and x-axis. While he may sometimes spend full income on one commodity. Say if he is spending full income on y, x will be 0, so the line will touch x. If he is spending full income on y, x, y will be 0. So the line can touch x-axis and the y-axis. This is the equation of budget line. So the difference you have to tell to the children. If it is budget set, instead of equal, it should be less than or equal to. If it is budget line, it should only be equal to, as ma'am rightly said. And what will be the slope of the budget line? It slopes downward from left to right. It shows that you can increase the consumption of one good only by reducing the consumption of the other. And two variables are there now. The slope will be the ratio between them. When you are presenting two variables in a diagram, the slope will be decided by the ratio between those two variables. Here the two variables are x commodity and the y commodity. So slope will be Px by Py, price of x divided by price of y. Now we are coming to consumers equilibrium under indifference curve analysis. Can you explain the first condition? Anybody? In indifference curve analysis, first condition for consumers equilibrium. Any one of you? Can you just explain? When is a consumer in equilibrium under indifference curve analysis? Anybody?
Slope of the budget line and the indifference curve should be equal.
Yeah. Can you just put it in a different way? What is the slope of the indifference curve?
Marginal rate of substitution.
Yeah, MRS XY, marginal rate of substitution between x and the y. It should be equal to
Price line. That is slope of
slope of the budget line. What is the slope of the budget line?
Px by Py.
Px by Py. So MRS XY is equal to Px by Py. Am I right? Or we can say the indifference curve should be tangent to the budget line. It should be touching the budget line. Here you see at point E. At point E, the indifference curve is tangent to the budget line. It is touching the budget line. So at this point, the consumer is in equilibrium. See, it will be tangent or it will be touching the budget line when the slopes are equal. When slopes are equal, only two lines will be touching each other. So slope of the indifference curve is MRS XY and slope of the budget line is Px by Py. They should be equal. So this is one condition actually for consumers equilibrium under indifference curve analysis. MRS XY should be equal to Px by Py. That means slope of the indifference curve should be equal to slope of the budget line. Or we can say indifference curve should be tangent to the budget line. At the point of tangency, at this point, MRS XY will be equal to Px by Py. Can you tell me what will happen if they are not equal? Anybody? How equilibrium will be restored? Suppose MRS XY is greater than Px by Py. What will happen? MRS XY is greater than Px by Py. How equilibrium will be restored?
The consumer will consume more of X.
And he will reduce the consumption of Y. Correct now?
Yes, sir. And in that law of DMU applies.
Yes, yes. Very good, very good. If MRS XY is greater than Px by Py, the consumer will increase the consumption of X and reduce the consumption of Y. Then MRS XY will fall. marginal rate of substitution between x and y will fall and it will become equal to px by py. Just opposite will happen if MRS xy is less than px by py. What will happen if MRS xy is less than px by py?
Consumption of Y will increase and X will fall.
Excellent. He will increase the consumption of y and he will reduce the consumption of x. Then MRS xy will rise and it will become equal to px by py. So this is the first condition. We can say it like a indifference curve should be tangent to the budget line, or we can say MRS xy should be equal to px by py, and we should be able to explain what will happen if these two are not equal. Can you tell me the second condition? See, second condition also has got mark. Tell the children that they have to write the second condition. What is the second condition here?
So mu falls.
Yeah. Indifference curve should
If we
be
continue,
convex to the origin at the point of tangency. At this point of tangency, the indifference curve should be convex to origin. Correct now? It is convex to origin means marginal utility is falling. It is convex to origin means marginal utility is falling. So that is the second condition actually. So that's all.